we'll go ahead and get started. Again, thank you so much for attending. We very much appreciate it. This is our ProLinkHFA webinar series that we host February through October every year. And we're going to be covering using our Forma in our financials tool within ProLinkHFA today. I am going to present our general information for a few minutes here to kick us off, as well as some of our business presentation before handing it off to Kelly to provide our live demo. Kelly Encinias is our HFA Senior Product Manager, and I am Kreuter. I'm the Executive VP for ProLink. Quickly, just going over this webinar. So we have hosted this for a number of years, really kind of when we all went virtual, we started to produce this webinar as a means to connect with our industry, our clients and partners in affordable housing, and just cover industry topics that are concerns for everyone and discuss software and how we can use that to improve our business processes around these subjects. So every month we have a business presenter and a technical presenter. A lot of times it's ProLinkers, but we do often try to get special guests and some of our clients to participate when those topics make sense for them as well. So the webinar will last about 45 minutes. And our audience is housing agencies nationally. So really this is our sweet spot, and you guys are exactly who we're trying to speak to today. We cover things related to mostly what's already existing in ProLink. Sometimes we talk about things that are coming. We have a couple announcements today for things that are coming in future releases. And for our existing clients, which I know make up a good portion of our audience, it's a good chance for us to have a refresher or a reminder on some of the tools and things that you may know about already, but perhaps are not using currently, or perhaps you're in the middle of implementing and we can give you some new ideas with that. And in other cases, you may not know about it because we do have new things coming out on a quarterly basis. So I'm looking forward to share more as the months go on. We are focusing this quarter on compliance and best practices. So that has been kind of leading our discussion from August and through October. And then we will move on to a new theme. Okay, so then giving you a little bit of a history on ProLink. We've been in, for those of you who know us, you know our history probably pretty well, but for anyone new today, we've been in the affordable housing industry for over 20 years now. We serve what we call the 3 pillars of affordable, so state and local housing finance agencies, syndicators, and investors and developers are groups that we serve, and we really started out in the affordable business in this industry working with housing agencies. ProLinkHFA was our first product, and so because of that, it's our most mature product. And our goal is to create systems that are holistic and support our clients through the entire life cycle of a deal. So from that origination stage all the way through asset management, compliance, and ongoing monitoring. We really specialized and started in asset management and compliance, and so that's kind of the cornerstone of how everything else was built up and around ProLinkHFA over the years. And our team is made up of technologists who have a lot of experience in affordable at this point. We're very fortunate to have many of our employees who've been with us, some since the very beginning, and Kelly herself has been involved in developing and building ProLinkHFA for I think its entire existence. So I'm fortunate to have that experience with our company and offering that to our clients through our customer success program. Here's just a few other parts to keep in mind, talking about ProLink's visibility in our industry and how we try to lead as a vendor in affordable housing. We currently support 17 state housing finance agencies and 2 supportive services agencies across the United States. We also support 5 syndicator, investor, and lender clients as well for their affordable portfolios. We do have very strong partnerships with NCSHA, and we help We are on the NAMA XML standards group, so the committee, and host that group on ProQuorum, which is a collaboration tool that we offer for our HFAs to collaborate with third parties. So that's very cool, and we continue to provide feedback and work with those groups to automate and make things a little more streamlined as much as we can year over year. As far as industry education goes, that's something that we are continuing to really focus on and try to bring more to especially our clients, but to the industry as much as we can. These webinars are a good example of that. We actually started, it should be called the ProQuorum Developer on this slide. It's called Developer Webinar here. It kind of started out focusing on developers, but we've started a new monthly webinar series that you may see announcements for that focuses on ProQuorum, that collaboration tool, and offers kind of guidance in how our agencies typically administer different processes and requests to your external parties using that tool. We do user training quarterly with our user group on ProLinkHFA. And then we have a conference called ProLink Technology Live, and that occurs every November. So we host this webinar series through October. Then we'll host our ProLink Tech Live conference in November, which includes usually around 6 to 8 sessions, mostly training, but also panels and guest speakers. Stockton Williams is going to be our guest speaker this year, so we're looking forward to him joining us from NCSHA. And it is open to everyone, so certainly focused on our user group, but we invite all HFAs to join that. So you will see announcements coming to register in the coming weeks for that conference. And then lastly, in technology leadership, we really strive and have accomplished some great partnerships with Amazon Web Services, AWS. All of ProLink's products are hosted on AWS. We've integrated with other tools like DocuSign with some of our products to provide kind of the best in show of technology within our tools, rather than reinventing the wheel on everything. When we can use another great tool or platform out there to enhance ProLinkHFA or ProQuorum, we try to do that. So that's a little bit about the type of company we are and how we position ourselves in the industry. Here's a quick just picture, visual of the agencies that we support across the U.S. here, including those supportive services agencies in New York and in California. And then quickly before we get into our business topics, this is a bird's eye view. I know many who are regulars on our webinar have seen this multiple times. For those who are new, this kind of makes up the ProLinkHFA product suite that we offer. So you can see ProLinkHFA represented on the top there, which is that database that our housing finance agencies are using as really their holy grail of record keeping. It's that source of data internal to the agency. And then ProQuorum is the third-party collaboration tool that we offer, where developers and really any third parties, contractors, property managers will be logging in for the application rounds, through construction and reporting and requests for draws and all of those procedures that happen, and then into asset management and compliance, submitting data and going back and forth with those parties on those requests. And so that's kind of what we refer to as a little bit of the relationship room, before we then push that data into ProLinkHFA for your record keeping and reporting. And here is just another picture, visually really honing in on ProLinkHFA, that database tool. So you can see we have a number of modules that make up that kind of full life cycle for portfolio management for our clients, with our multifamily development and bond financing module in orange. We also have our asset management and compliance module, and then our single family development module. We also have a few kind of special areas, special kind of, tools, maybe not full on modules, but special tools to support our supportive services clients, REO and Budget Pro, which is a construction draw request tool that we built into ProQuorum. So I would almost refer to some of those as apps built within ProLinkHFA and ProQuorum to provide more support for other programs and business processes that you have and need some support on. So that is the full grouping of our standard modules in ProLinkHFA. We provide ProLinkHFA as a full platform for our clients. So all the modules kind of work together, and we don't want to limit that. So you have access, even if you may be focused on asset management and compliance, you will have access to development, bond financing, and all of the different pieces of ProLinkHFA with our product. So then going into our business presentation, there's just a few things that I'm going to point out in the next few slides before handing it off to Kelly. Some of this is important for, like, I think visually it will make a lot of sense to our existing users of ProLinkHFA. I think a lot of our users, you're familiar with the difference between what ProLink refers to as a deal versus a property. So you have your property and multiple deals can be associated with that property. When we're talking about the Forma functionality that we've built within our standardized financials tool, we want to make sure that we convey to our users that the standardized financials and the forecasts are associated with the property level, not the deal level. So it's a little bit different from the way that your Forma may currently be mapped to user-defined fields at the deal level. When we're talking about using the Forma and the forecast functionality in standardized financials, it is going to be at the associated property level. And then the other thing we wanted to just make sure we reiterate and point out is that when a deal is created, whether it's a blended deal or a standalone deal, it will automatically be associated to a property. So there's that kind of required search for a property that ProLinkHFA requires when you originate a new deal, and so that is the point at which that property would be associated with that deal. Okay. And then Kelly's going to be covering all of this for the most part during the live demo. So we will share this slide deck also after the presentation. So certainly these screenshots are helpful, but you will see it live and then you will have the recording as well to refer to. This next slide is for it's for our AM characteristics and create activities functionality. So our asset management characteristics and create activities features within ProLinkHFA. So we just wanted, again, to kind of orient everyone to this new feature. The forecasts are not required and can be removed or added at any time to the property. So within AM characteristics, the new forecast functionality is not something that is going to be required in order to take advantage and use AM characteristics or to use the create activities functionality in ProLinkHFA. And that functionality, I think, is fairly heavily used by our clients who are using standardized financials right now because it allows you to bulk publish out and record the financials that are required for that deal and for that property. And so that is something that you can still take advantage of. You'll have the opportunity to pull in your forecast data with your Forma, have that available for your underwriting and asset management, and still also layer on your additional records and requirements for financials in the create activities page within ProLinkHFA. So you can still use that, plus you'll have the availability of the forecast data that you pull in through that Forma. And the create activities data, this screen, that's referring to the requirements for actuals, for budget and actual data. So the forecast is just an additional metric that we will now have available to us for reporting. Okay, so then Smart Docs is the next topic. Thinking about how this might look compared to how you're pulling in your Forma data currently. Smart Docs, typically with our clients, their Forma is already mapped. I think hopefully with most of our clients is mapped using Smart Docs, and it's going into UDFs, user-defined fields that are within the dev deal functionality of ProLink. So with the Forma going into standardized financials. And in order to take advantage of recording and tracking that forecast data annually, we would map or remap the pro forma to the property level within the forecast financials functionality. So that would make it so that when you do a smart doc send, it populates those forecasts at the property level. So that is a change, and Kelly's going to demo a little smart doc send, I think, as part of her demonstration today. And then the final thing we wanted to spend some time on real quick is reporting. So thinking about that. Reporting, there's twofold to this. So currently we're going to demo what's already available in ProLinkHFA. This is a new feature. So we are still developing and plan to release more reporting and analytics in Q1, Q2 of 2024, which will include a new reporting type for forecast. You can see it highlighted in yellow how it will actually look within our analytics within standardized financials. So forecast will be available then to compare against your budget and annual audits. So you'll be able to do that threefold forecast and comparable once we release that new functionality between Q1 and Q2 of 2024. And then currently we have the availability to use data views. So while that might not be there quite yet, we also have our data views, which is our ad hoc kind of reporting tool, which allows you already to pull, once you have your forecast data in standardized financials, you can pull a forecast against budget, against your actuals, and it's available at every level within those financials. So every section of the standardized financials can be pulled. And with that, Kelly, did I leave anything out that you want to cover before we move into the demo?
I don't think so. I think we're okay. I think we'll, I'll kind of take everybody through a few of these things live and hopefully answer any questions that anybody might have. So let me go ahead and share my screen so that y'all can see what I'm doing. Bree, confirm for me that you can in fact see my screen.
Yeah, we can see it. Thank you.
Okay, great. Okay, so let's start out with kind of talking about and reviewing this idea of our deal and property being associated together at the point that we create this deal. So you can see where I'm positioned within the system right now. I am actually positioned at a deal that I've created in the system. This deal just happens to be Bonita Springs Apartments. And as I look to this left navigation menu, I can see that I've got a menu option for my portfolio property. I can click into that menu option. That will let me navigate then into that particular property. Okay, so I just wanted to do a quick refresher there to kind of remind us and show us that our deal and our property are connected together at deal creation. Now, obviously, there are scenarios where you have a deal coming into your portfolio that, you might already have an existing property in your portfolio. And so you'd be connecting that deal to that already existing property. And that's fine. All of this functionality that we're going to look at together today will work in the same way. But, typically when you have a new application for funding, you're creating a new deal, you can create that property and it's associated and connected for you. And the reason that that's so important is because as we're talking about the pro forma and collecting that forecast information, that information is going to come right into our standardized financials records here within our portfolio property. So as I'm looking down this left navigation menu here within the portfolio property, we can see that I have this standardized financials menu option. I can see that my count there is 0 because I don't have any information here yet. I haven't collected anything, okay? But the reason that, this is so important is because when I remap that pro forma, that funding application that I have, and I'm mapping to collect that forecast information that's given to me in that application, I am going to then send that information here to my property in my financials records. And the reason that I'm doing that, the reason I'm sending that information into my property versus to my deal is because then, if this deal is approved for funding, and we actually close and we go through construction and whatnot, and it finally moves in to my monitoring portfolio, I want that forecast information to be available to my asset management and compliance teams so that they can compare that to those budget and audited financials that they're collecting in the years going on, right? We want to be able to see that comparison of, okay, here's what that developer forecasted, and then year over year, here's that anticipated budget, and then finally our audited financials, so that we can start to see, how close to the mark are we? Maybe how is this particular developer owner doing for us when they are doing those forecasts and application and the like, okay? And so that's why that data is going to be sent up via SmartDocs into property records, is because, like I'm saying, we want to be able to see that data and look at it across the years that we're monitoring, okay? So again, we've got this brand new deal that we created. We're here at the associated property. We see that there are, in fact, no financial records here. So let's take a look at and talk about SmartDocs and how we're going to get this data in, and what does the SmartDocs look like, and that kind of thing. So I am going to share with you a small sample that we created just for this demonstration of what your SmartDocs could look like. So, those of you that are using ProLinkHFA today, you've got, a SmartDocs mapped funding application likely that you're using. You're pushing, boatloads of information into your dev deal and likely your tax credit deal. And so again, kind of like Bree mentioned, adding in this forecast data is going to be either a remap for you. If you happen to be pushing forecast data into user-defined fields right now, this is going to be a remap. If you're not collecting the forecast data right now, this will just be simply an addition to the mapping that you have today, okay? So as we kind of look at this example that I have, this is very simple. This in no way does this truly represent a real funding application. So, don't feel like I've made this so simple and how can you do this? You can't. This is just a sample. But I just kind of wanted to highlight as I kind of hover over some of these fields that I have mapped, we can see in that comment that is displayed that we are in fact mapped to our dev deals. That's what that comment is telling us. And then from our deal, we're going to our primary property for our deal. And then we're heading into our forecast financials there. And then we can see, we're going to the forecast financial line items, and this first particular field happens to be my residential rent, okay? So for those who may have SmartDocs mapped for the collection of their annual financials, this mapping is going to look a little bit familiar to you, right? Because it's following those financial line items, right? Well, that's where your forecast is going to live now, is right in those financials line items. So that's going to look familiar, but now we have access to map those fields into our application via our dev deal, okay? So this is really what we're going to be looking at in terms of, changes to to our Forma, our application today. Again, either mapping or remapping using this new availability of the property and the financials records there via SmartDocs, okay? So let's go ahead and do a quick little send of this SmartDoc sample that I have here so that we can see this thing populate and create these financial records for us. This is exciting, you guys. This has been a little while coming, so I'm really excited for this. So what I will do is within my SmartDoc here, I'm going to go ahead and click on my ProLink menu. And for those who are familiar with SmartDocs, you know you see your ProLink menu option when you're in Excel or Word. Those who might be kind of new know that only your internal agency folks will see that ProLink menu option. When you give an application like this to, you know, your external partners, your developer doesn't see or have access to that ProLink menu option. So they have no idea like what you're doing or how you're collecting this data. So have no worries there. That'll be just for your internal folks. And so because this is my application and I want to send this data into ProLinkHFA, I'm going to go ahead and click on my send button here in my ProLink menu. So, you know, I've got ProLink telling me, hey, I'm trying to talk to the server and talk to SmartDocs and get this data ready to send. I am on single sign-on. So you kind of saw a little bit of a flash there of that single sign-on kind of working behind the scenes there. So you're not going to see me log in is the point there. Sometimes folks might have single sign-on, so you don't have to sign into SmartDocs. Other times you might not, and you have to sign in just like you would sign into the application, okay? Now, this very first time that I get this application for funding from a developer, I do have to connect or link this application to my dev deal in the system. So that is why we see this search window here. So remember, the deal that I'm working with is Bonita Springs. And so I do have to go through this function of searching and selecting my deal one time to get this application connected to my deal. Then I can click OK. ProLink SmartDocs gives me the opportunity to record a few more attributes about this particular file that I'm sending. I don't have to, it's optional. I can just click OK. And so now this data is being sent into the system. So now that I've connected this funding application to my deal in the system, as I might be working with this particular developer back and forth, I could have that developer making updates to, that's weird. Why is that going behind like that? Oh, that was funny. I could have that developer making updates to this application for me as we're kind of working through, right, this application process. So I might be doing multiple sends into the system of this data, and that's fine. That, you know, those of you who are experienced with SmartDocs, you know, you can do multiple sends of your application. That data is just updated however many times into your deal. So now that we're adding in this property financial information, it's the same scenario. This data will simply be replaced, updated for us each time we do a send, okay? Now this message is just SmartDocs telling us, hey, everything went fine, the data's there, you're good to go, okay? So I can click okay, and that's fine. So then for the moment, I'm done with that SmartDoc. So I'm going to kind of pull that out of our way. And I want to bring us back here to the system. So remember, I did that send. So now that should build these financial records for me in the system with that forecast information. So let me do a little refresh here on my window. Then I'm going to see all those records now in my financials that I sent from that SmartDoc, okay? So if we look back for just a moment to that Smart Doc, we see, those kind of handful of numbers that we sent in, and we sent in 15 years worth of that forecast information, okay? So that is what we're seeing now in the system here on the property, right? But in that new forecast column, okay? So those of you who are familiar, you'll recall, once this deal gets through construction lease up, it comes into asset management and compliance for monitoring. We then are creating our, potentially budget, possibly monthly, quarterly, and likely annual financials records, okay? And so that will just continue just like it has in the past, just like we've done previously, right? We can, click in, and we are offered to create, what records do we want for this year that we've chosen. I'm choosing budget and annual. I can do my days due before and after, so that those due dates are set for me, and I can do a save. And the system will then add my budget and my annual records for my 2027 reporting year, okay? And so, from that point forward, your financials really function the way that you were accustomed to previously. You just have the addition now of your forecast information being available there for you, okay? And remember too that as I'm here working potentially on my property record and potentially looking at that forecast information, I can always click right back over to my dev deal right here in my left navigation menu. So I can just click on my dev activities. That's going to give me the option to click right back over to my dev deal. So again, none of that linkage changes. My financial records are still going to function, throughout asset management and compliance. It's just that I have that addition of those forecast records. So, woohoo. Okay, so listen, we've got this forecast information in the system now. So what? Big deal. What can we do with it now that it's there? Well, let's take a minute and look at some reporting that will now be available to us with this forecast information. So we're going to head into our data views because that's the reporting that's available to us right now. If you'll remember, Bree mentioned that coming probably Q1, Q2 here, right around the corner, we are going to be amping up that analytics reporting that we have around the financials. In fact, let's take a visit back to that and just take a look at that for a moment. I can head back into my Bonita Springs property, and I can click into a financials record here. And let's just look for a moment at that analytics live. We had a screenshot, but let's kind of touch it and feel it here for a minute. So with my financial analytics, any financials record that I choose to look at, I've got my financial analytics as a button available to me in my toolbar. I click on that button, and then that's going to bring me into this reporting screen. Now, at this reporting screen, I have options here. I can choose to look at budget information, and I'm defaulting to budget information because that's the financials record that I kind of navigated from. But once I'm here, if I want to look at annual, I can look at annual. I can look at forecast. I know the option's here, but it's not quite ready yet. I can even look at monthly and quarterly as well. And then depending on the reporting type that I select, I then do here in the right-hand column have some options for monthly and quarterly possible periods because those are selections there in my reporting type. Now, I also have my analytics views selections. I default to core. I've got some other metrics that I look at. I can look specifically into like profit and loss, balance sheet, cash flow statement, and the like, okay? I have options to show a portfolio benchmark. And then depending on the reporting types that I choose, I can look at trailing periods and year over year, okay? So let's just do, I don't have data so much in the budget for Bonita Springs, so we're not going to see true number here because I haven't populated anything yet, but to give kind of the conceptual idea of what we're going to see here, once we add forecasts, we're going to be able to look at property level metrics, you know, NOI, debt service, cash flow, we'll be able to see forecast and budget and annual with variance, okay, side by side, at annualized numbers. And then we'll also be able to see those same numbers on a per unit basis. And again, you know, side by side, forecast to budget to annual, okay? We'll also be able to see some of the other metrics, DCR, occupancy rates, both economic and physical, replacement reserves. And again, we're going to be able to see once we add in this forecast reporting, forecast data that we're collecting, we'll be able to have that view of forecast as compared to operating budget, and then finally to the audited financial. Okay, so this will be pretty exciting stuff. And again, coming probably Q1, Q2. But again, let's head into our data views and take a look at what we can do right now. Now, remember, when I say right now, you all can see I'm showing you this functionality. If you look kind of here at my kind of upper left of my screen, I am in my UAT, my user acceptance testing environment, okay? So this functionality, this initial functionality with this forecast information is going to be coming to you with the next production build, right? So like, you know, those of you who are ProLinkHFA customers, you could look at what I'm showing you so far today in your UAT environment. We're not into production until our next production build, okay? Just so that you know that. But you can start, you could go into your UAT environment and start kind of poking around, taking a look. You know, those of you who are interested, it'd be a great time to kind of get in, look around, kind of start planning, you know, what's going to be, or, you know, how are you going to get your forecast data mapped out of your pro forma application to be then sending into the system. So you can start that today, just looking in your UAT environment, okay? But so let's look at the data views that we've got right now and, you know, what reporting we could do even initially, you know, if we're able to pull in some of this forecast data. So within our data views panel, we're going to be looking in our AM section here. And the reason for that, remember, is because we're pushing this forecast, this pro forma data into those financial records, right, which are on our property, okay? So we're looking into this AM section, and what we're looking for is our financials data views here. So we can see we've got, you know, our levels 1 through 4, our other, and our metrics, okay? So all of the forecast data is going to be available in all, 6 of these data views, just like any of the financials data that we might look at today, okay? So let's take a look in our financial metrics. I did a little sample of a view here that we could look at together. Just an idea here. But what I was going for here is what I call a comparable forecast. So what I've done here is ahead of time, I populated some forecast numbers with SmartDocs into a handful of deals, properties in the system. And so what I'm wanting to look at here is with this forecast data that I've populated, I'm trying to look at how does my Bonita Springs, my brand new deal that I'm just taking in an application, how does this compare in similar or nearby counties with similar unit counts? Okay. So obviously you can see I did not fill in my county on Bonita Springs, but I can see on this handful of other deals here that are in Denver County. And I happen to know Bonita Springs is in Denver County too, even though I kind of fell down on the job filling in that county. So I know I'm looking at Denver County area, and I know that I'm looking at deals or properties with 100 units or proposed to be 100 units. So now I'm kind of comparing apples to apples here, right? So I can start to look at, what does annualized cash flow look like, across these deals that I'm already working in, and then as comparing my new deal, Bonita, to other deals in the portfolio. Am I in line? Does this thing seem like it's going along with other projects in the area of similar size, right? And of course, I can compare NOI, economic occupancy rate, and then operating expenses, right? Those are the numbers I happen to kind of fill in for this example. But, this starts to paint that picture of, what you can begin to do then with this forecast information, certainly, kind of upfront in production and pipeline as you've got deals coming in, you can really start to do this comparison of the data that's being supplied in that forecast to, is this in line? Is it way high? Is it way low? And if so, if there is variance greatly from other projects in the area, why? And is this something that I need to review with the developer and consider whether or not, we're approving this particular project? So valuable reporting that becomes available with this forecast information. I did also create one other data view just to quickly show. I did a financials level 1. Again, I can look at forecast data. I can look at a little bit different, pieces of the line items that we're collecting. Here I'm looking at revenue and expense, cash increase or decrease. And again, I can, with data views, I begin to be able to look at this information that I'm collecting, across my portfolio. So just wanted to highlight the reporting possibilities that become available, once we start collecting this detail. Okay. And that's it for today, guys. I hope you're as excited as I am about being able to really, truly collect and report on this forecast data. Thank you.
Okay, so just to wrap up, current slide. So this is just to let you guys know about our next event. So on October 4th, this will be our last regular webinar for this year, for 2023. We'll have our November conference after that, and we're going to be covering checklists. So please feel free to join us for that. We'll be covering the adding checklists manually process in ProLinkHFA, creating and adding checklist templates, checklist reporting with data views, and then checklists and workflows. So please go ahead and register for that, and we will see you there. I think that the registration link will be posted in the chat as well, and we'll follow up in our newsletter and with the recording and the link to this presentation deck. So we appreciate your attendance, and we look forward to seeing you in October. Thank you.